the next thing I wanted to get into, Jordan, was the introductory press conference of Garrett Riley and Dabo Swinney. I'm sure, we mentioned a couple comments at the beginning of the show talking about some comments that Dabo Swinney had, some comments that Garrett Riley had. And I think a few interesting things came out of that press conference. But where we will start is the most obvious place, I guess. Dabo Swinney made some comments, not unlike comments that he's made in the past about a certain sect of the Clemson fan base, if that's how you want to put it, or the way that some of the noise was surrounding the program this season and in the past few seasons, I guess you could say. And that is that Clemson was underachieving. They wanted change. They felt like Clemson's football was trending in the wrong direction. And he made some, he made a lot of comments that you've heard Dabo Swinney make a million times. So what were your thoughts on what Dabo Swinney said and some of the reaction to his comments?
Yeah. Dabo kind of went scorched earth on the fans.
He did. He absolutely did.
Listen, I think Dabo certainly made some really good, key points. I do think there is merit to a lot of what he said about, Clemson fan. You got to have perspective, and you've got to be able to enjoy the winning. And you've got to be able to, have perspective, enjoy the winning. And, I think there's to that. But I also think, and this is kind of where I had issue with some of what he said.
Yeah.
He seemed to criticize the fans for having, genuine concerns and gripes about how the program was being, maybe not how the program was being run, but some of the decisions, the product on the field, and stuff like that. Legitimate, concerns that any fan base would have, whether they're, a 3-9, a perennial 3-9 team, or they're a perennial college football playoff contender. I think there were just a lot of things, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, whether it was from coaching to personnel, that just wasn't good. And I think Dabo, without saying it explicitly, acknowledged all of that by making the move he did. I think he knew there was a lot wrong with the offense, and you could tell it weighed heavily on him. His face on during that Orange Bowl press conference was pretty brutal, and he even said that one stuck with him.
He said
you run 100 plays and you don't score.
100 plays, 31 first downs.
Yeah,
and you don't score.
34 first downs, I think.
34 first downs. But yeah, he said as much as in his press conference. He was like, he said after that Orange Bowl loss, like, I pretty much knew a change needed to happen.
Yeah. So I think going off on the fans, I thought was a little much. Like that. They're, the fans that are. Fans should be appreciative, but when you preach that, and I know people kind of, I'm not trying to throw best as the standard out in his face, because I know what he means when he says that. It doesn't mean that Clemson has to be 15-0 every year, but when things aren't hitting at the way they should be, given the investment, the talent level, the resources that you have. Fans are the ones that come in and spend tons of money, invest tons of money, even though they're not like lush with cash, to support the team every year. The Clemson fan base is one of the most loyal and awesome fan bases in all of college football. And I think everyone in here can agree with that. They travel well, and they consistently sell out home games. They show up they've shown up all throughout this football team's history, whether they've been good, whether they've been bad. And they are the blood of this football program. And so I think when they have, I'm not saying that Dabo should be taking advice from the fans.
No,
But when they have
no.
legitimate,
Yeah.
not legitimate, verifiable, obvious issues and obvious gripes with what's going on, I I don't think you should be upset with them over calling it out. I think that's your job as a fan. It's part of the experience of being a fan. It's not just rainbows and sunshine and I love this team no
Yeah.
matter what, and everything is going to be
Right.
okay, and all of that.
Yes.
I mean, that's fine if you're like that, but I don't think there's an issue with also being critical when it's called for, and I think it was called for. So
Yes.
Larry Williams had a really good article today on Rivals, basically talking about how Dabo had a lot to say, and a lot of what he said was was spot on, but the criticism, some of the criticism of the fans was a little too much,
Hmm.
because the fans did have legitimate reasons to be upset and concerned, and I think
Yes.
you can have it, but you can have it both ways. I don't think there's I don't think you have to be one way or the other. It's either
Right.
you can acknowledge that there are issues with the program while also not being a terrible person and attacking players and coaches and and
Yes.
and doing all of that. So
Yeah.
there is a right way to do this, and I think calling out the fans that were doing that, that were being critical for a good reason is not, it's not what you should do really. But hey,
Yeah.
I I'm willing to. Dabo can go on as many rants about the fans as he wants, as if he's going to make the changes and decisions that are necessary to keep this program, at the top or near the top, and peak, running at peak efficiency. So if
Yeah.
he's, I mean, it's I don't love it, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I didn't love all of his comment. I do agree with parts, much like you said, I agree with parts of what Dabo Swinney said. I agree that, yes, obviously he has done a ton for Clemson football. He's done the most for Clemson football than anybody ever has in the history of Clemson football. We have won, double digit wins for, what, 12 years now. We've had, it's the amazing run that we have been on. Okay. He spouted off the numbers 100 times before. And I agree with that part of it. Um, but here's where you kind of lose me. You kind of lose me with, um, he tends to, when he's talking to the fans like this, and I'm not taking offense to anything that he said, but I just wish I feel like some of the stuff that he says when he's talking about the fans in this way is really disingenuous. He makes it he pretends or makes it appear like that he thinks if he doesn't go 15-0, these fans have been so spoiled because of what's happening in Clemson football that we're not going to be happy. And that's
Right.
just a disingenuous take. That's okay. I'm not saying no one in the Clemson fan base is saying that. Of course, you have your small sect of crazies in every fan base, right? But when you're talking about the majority of Clemson fans, the arguments and the things that we were, having issue with, the things that we were, bringing up concerns about and saying that changes need to be made was play on the field, how it looked on the field. Yes, you still won 10 games in 2021. You still won 11 games this season,
11, yeah.
right? And that's great. We're not criticizing that you won 11 games and won the ACC. See, that's where it gets misconstrued. That Clemson fans aren't happy that we won 11 games, and we're not happy. It's not enough that we won the ACC. It's not that. We look at the talent on the field. We look at where we recruit. We can look at these sites and see where Clemson ranks based off of talent on the team. And we rank top 5 with talent on the field. And when you're producing an offense that looks like Clemson's looked, obviously something's not right. Obviously something is going wrong. And yes, is it amazing that we still pulled out 11 wins, won the ACC, and got to a New Year's Six game? Yes. But he admitted all the things that the fans were saying all season by firing the offensive coordinator and hiring Garrett Riley. Dabo, like you agree with us. You just don't agree with maybe how we, voice our opinions. And, maybe that's okay. And I don't think any sane Clemson fan is out there saying that, Dabo Swinney doesn't know how to run a program and this, that, and the other. We were simply voicing legitimate concerns that were happening in the Clemson program. And I'd stand by what I said all season, that offensive staff, as currently constructed as they were, could not get the job done. Me and you said it a million times on this show, and we were right. And clearly Dabo Swinney agreed with us because he fired the offensive coordinator and hired Garrett Riley. Clemson fans aren't spoiled, but when you recruit to the level that we have and you have the roster talent that Clemson has, if it's not getting developed, if it's not getting put into position of producing on the field, then we are going to look to the coaching staff and we are going to say, what is going wrong? What is happening? It wasn't one season. It's been a steady decline. It hit bad in 2021. It got a little bit better in 2022, but it wasn't right. Clemson's offense never looked okay. It never looked good. It had its moments, but overall, when you look at the totality of it, it wasn't a good offense. So a change has to be made. And the argument that remember how bad it was and remember how good it's been is not an argument for fans to stop complaining about issues within the program or issues on the team. That's never a good argument. I hate that argument. It's such an old, tired argument. Well, you guys don't remember back when we were winning. And I'm not saying Dab was saying this, but I've heard other Clemson fans tell other Clemson fans that, oh, well, you don't remember the Tommy West days and you don't remember the so-and-so days. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Hatfield, Tommy Bowden. You were just
Who cares? Who cares about Tommy Bowden? Who cares about Hatfield? Who cares about any of those dudes that didn't get the job done? First of all, they didn't have the talented roster that Clemson currently has. Second of all, why would I want to go back to that? No one wants to go back to that. So in order to not go back to that, there has to be accountability when slippage starts to happen. Somebody has to call it out and be like, hey, I'm looking around and everybody else looks like they're getting better, and we don't look like we're getting better. We look like we're getting worse. What's going on with that? So, right, yeah, exactly right. This just means he's becoming complete. And I think there was, to a level, there was some complacency, and there was some, obviously, some staleness in the offensive side of the ball. But he made the necessary changes, and I think that just says that he understands more than we do what's going on with this Clemson program, and I can't fault him. I don't like all of the stuff that he said, but I get it. I get it from his perspective. I understand it, and he's still putting Clemson football first, and he's still making the decisions that it takes to keep them at an elite level. And I never, I've never been one of these ones. Well, maybe no. Dabo Swinney has a lifelong contract with Clemson, and I think he's competitive to the point where he doesn't want to see this thing go in a bad direction, which is why he made the change. There's a reason. It wasn't easy for him to fire Brandon Streeter. Brandon Streeter was a friend. Brandon Streeter was a player for Clemson. They have a Brandon Streeter award that they give out. So he is woven into the fabric of what Clemson is. So I know it wasn't easy, but I'm happy to see him do it. And I think we are trending in the right direction. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. You said it. Yeah. You said it about as good as anyone possibly could. Yeah. I mean, as long as Dabo continues to make, the decisions that are needed, it's okay, because I think the biggest thing in a lot of Clemson fans were scared of was that there wasn't going to be changes made, and that was a scary thing. And because it's just, you see the backslide on offense, and You're losing games that you should be winning. You're uncompetitive in games that you should be competitive in. And it's clear that the talent, was not being developed and not being coached and not being put in position, the best positions they possibly could to succeed. And, it's up to the head coach to determine what that is. I mean, the fans can only, they can voice their opinion on social media and say all they want. But at the end of the day, it's down to the man. And I'm just glad to see that the man in charge, is, still willing to pull the trigger and make that tough decision. So, I didn't love everything Dabo said. He had some good points. He had some points I didn't really like, but it's at the end of the day, I feel a lot better about where the program is heading than I did 2 months ago. So
I'm not upset with anything that he said or anything like that. Like I said, I completely get where he's coming from. And we're like you said, we're headed in a good direction. We all know Dabo Swinney is stubborn, but he's a competitor and he wants to win, and that's very evident. So,
and what's funny? I had one thing I did think that he said was really funny was when he talked about how back in 2011 when they won the ACC championship and how there were 5,000 fans that greeted them back at the buses, and he says he's like, now we come back from winning the ACC and there's nobody there. I'm like, well, Dabo, you guys, the buses could go around to Reeves now. They drop the dudes off. You don't even tell us when you're coming back.
Yeah.
We
can't get over there.
It's not the most accessible to the general public.
They got gates and stuff over there, man.
I thought it was really funny. I was like, well, it's not like you guys publicize when you're coming back like you used to. So maybe the fans would be there, but I don't know. I thought that was I thought that was a silly thing to say, but.
Right.
I understand what he's trying to say. But
and I mean, that's par for the course. When you do something over and over and over again, obviously, less and less people show up for the celebration. I get that. I understand what he was getting at there, but that's comical. John Sarin says, I don't think he was complacent. He had a vision, and it didn't work out for the offense. It's not like Streeter was an OC for 3 years. The correction was made pretty quickly. I give Dabo full credit for pulling the trigger, because honestly, if you would have asked me at the end of the season, I did not think this was going to happen. By no means did I think he was going to fire Brandon Streeter. I didn't think there was going to be a change. I thought we would have Brandon Streeter for at least another season, possibly more. But he definitely pulled the trigger quickly. Which is good. So if the Orange Bowl is what it took, then I guess it's just one of the things that we had. I'm never going to say I'm happy we lost, but if that's what it took, then maybe that's what was best for the program, to lose in that fashion on the national stage.